Welcome back. Julie and I, we're in Sicily, but we've got some special guests that are RV experts, worldwide RV experts that have been traveling the world. They're actually sitting in Cambodia at the moment, but they're going to share their knowledge and experience with us today about their adventures with their RV while exploring Europe. But let's go ahead at this time. We're going to invite over our Nomad RV experts, Kevin and Ruth. Hi, Kevin. Hi, Ruth.
Hi guys, thanks for having us.
Oh, our pleasure. We actually ran into Kevin and Ruth on a Facebook group and had making some comments back and forth, and found out that they've got a pretty active blog that they're doing, talking about their lifestyle as they're traveling the world. They've been traveling 17 years.
17 years, but I mean, certainly last the last 7 years have been full time. The first ones were kind of part time, and we went back to Canada to work during the summer. But yeah, it's been a long time since we sold our house and started a kind of an alternate lifestyle.
And you're 62 years young, if I'm not mistaken.
62 years young. Yep.
Yep.
Okay. And what is
Started when we were 45.
Yeah.
what is your website called?
We're at Travel with Kevin and Ruth. It's that simple. We've been doing the website since 2007, since we set out, which is I mean, we've got to be getting to the point where we're one of the oldest travel blogs out there. And of course, we started out doing it with RVing
In North America.
in North America because that was our interest at the time. And we, like you, we had a dog at the time. And I mean, uh, we set off with the dog, and the easiest way to travel was in a motorhome. So we did that until she passed away in 2011. But she had a good long life with us. We had her since she was 8 weeks old, and she was 15 and a half when she passed away. So she loved the RV lifestyle as well. Yeah.
So you guys spent about 2.5 years or so full time in Europe on an RV, is that correct?
Yeah. We just finished a 2.5 year trip in, boy, we went all the way from Morocco to Norway to Ireland to Turkey, right to the Syria border, driving a motorhome, which if you would have told me that I would drive a motorhome all the way to the border of Syria years ago, I mean, I would have not believed it. In fact, I think when we first set out and did the first trip to Mexico, I couldn't believe we were driving in Mexico. Um, so yeah, it's we just finished 2.5 years in a European motorhome and sold that motorhome in September of last year.
So many of our viewers are aware that Julie and I, we drive our car. It's a Citroen Berlingo that we have registered in Bulgaria, and we have a great attorney there set up our corporation. And as officers of the corporation, we drive our Bulgarian car all over Europe with our dogs. And then we also just learned about an option in Germany that we just recently did a video with. And then you disclosed a company in Denmark to me. So all of these different options will be available down in the description here. But the challenge to start off an RV journey is to be able to procure the RV, register the RV, insure the RV, travel across borders with the RV. We had a friend that did a French company that is also some sort of niche thing. I think that one was specifically really an RV thing, so cars aren't an option through that particular company, but they traveled for a couple of years, and I think theirs is up for sale now. So we do know somebody is selling an RV if somebody's looking, but we are always interested to know how you got your RV, how did you register it, insure it, and other people do the same thing, and how did you sell it?
Yeah, the logistics for sure are interesting, and maybe even a little bit intimidating to someone who's never done something like that before. We were lucky that we dealt with a dealer who was experienced in dealing with foreign buyers. They set us up eventually with this motorhome club in Denmark, which does a lot of vehicles for people around the world so that they can drive them in Europe and set them up with German license plates. That company was fairly easy to deal with. So they look after getting the insurance. They look after, I mean, at that point, it actually becomes fairly easy until of course, the time comes where you have to pay the bill. but the bill was not exorbitant. I mean, it was reasonable. I think for the full year of registration, insurance, roadside assistance, I think it was about $200 a month. And I think that for that, with the full insurance package, and I just thought it was pretty reasonable considering there were no headaches involved with the process.
And we were able to go into almost all the countries.
Right. We
had to phone them ahead of time or notify them ahead of time that we wanted to go into Morocco, but it didn't change. Like they just sent us a form to say that we had insurance for going into Morocco.
Yeah, so it would be the same green card type insurance form that you've got for your car is what we had for our motorhome. And of course, it ticks off all the little countries.
Our car, insurance-wise, can go across more borders than we could without a visa. I mean, I think our car is actually legal to cross into Iran. So, I mean,
there were some oddball countries that were approved.
Well, I don't think that we could go into Georgia without having a form.
Right. So that was Georgia, and that was also Cyprus. So we were going to have a problem with those countries because the actual registration is not in your name. It's like the same guy that you interviewed with the other German deal that he's got going. Your actual registration isn't in your name. It's in the name of the motor club.
Okay.
So when it comes to getting into some of these different countries like Georgia or Cyprus with the vehicle, they actually require a separate letter from the motor club or from whoever the vehicle's registered in order to temporarily import it to some of these countries. But within the Schengen zone, it's no problem at all. It's totally easy. Nobody asks any questions.
Really, it was good all the way up to the Syria border.
Yes.
And into Morocco. As I said, all we had to do was phone ahead or notify them. And then they emailed a slip that said, yep, you're covered.
Yeah.
And we could go into Morocco. Otherwise, the rest of Europe, no problem.
So let's real quickly, if you're a regular viewer here of the channel, you know what the Schengen is. The Schengen zone, we have to think of it as one country where you can spend 90 days every 180 days in it, and then you have to leave and go to a non-Schengen country. So our personal preference is Montenegro, but you have Serbia, you have Turkey, you have Macedonia, depending how you want to pronounce it.
Morocco.
Albania, Morocco.
And of course the UK.
In the UK and Ireland. You can only spend 90 days every 180 days in that group of countries. So here's the map to make sure you guys stay out of trouble as you travel. Now, your RV travels took you through many, many locations around the continent. And I will tell you, GPS, that we've had experiences in our car where we end up on goat trails and should not be going through this area with our car. And I don't know what Google Maps thinks sometimes when it's taking us someplace or ways. Have you had experiences with taking that RV where you probably shouldn't be taking it?
I do a lot of research. So, like Google Street View, once I find a location of somewhere I want to go, if I'm looking for an overnight spot or something like that, I will typically take those GPS coordinates, put them into Google Maps, do a lot of research with Street View and see what kind of roads I'm going to be on. Unfortunately, Street View doesn't work everywhere, but it does work in a lot of countries and it helps a lot. But yeah, we've been stuck on a couple of roads. There was one in Bulgaria, actually, where we were on a road trying to get somewhere, and it just kept getting narrower and narrower and narrower, and to the point where there were potholes, trees brushing up against the side and potholes, and so that kind of thing has happened. Fortunately, not very often. And there were times I remember in Greece when we were on some pretty narrow roads where we were thinking we were going to have to pull the mirrors in to get through. England was really bad for that in the Somerset area or Cornwall area with narrow roads. So yeah, it does happen. You have to be a confident driver. It's not so much the length of the motorhome, although length certainly does make it easier as well, but it's the width of the motorhome that makes all the difference.
When you're taking your RV places, we understand you do a lot of what's called wild camping instead of in RV parks. So I guess I want to ask you two different questions here. When you're traveling with the RV, how easy is it for you to park the RV in locations? Because parking in Europe, you have all these little bitty spaces everywhere and not you know, these small thin roads. So when you're wild camping, where are you parking and what are the RV parks like in Europe? And do you use those often? And if not, why not?
We don't use RV parks very often. We have used them occasionally. More often than not, it'll be looking for somewhere to
Do laundry,
to do laundry or fill up with water or
dump our tanks.
empty our holding tanks or something
Or
like
the
that.
weather has been miserable and we haven't had enough sun on the solar panels, so we want electricity.
Yeah, so those are probably the four reasons that we would find to need to use an RV park. And I mean it really doesn't happen very often because there's usually a lot of places you can find to fill up with water or empty your holding tank. So that's one thing about European RVs. They don't have a typical black tank like they do in North American RVs. So they're usually cassette toilets, which you can empty the cassette at any standard toilet if you're careful about it. Yeah, so it's like about a 5 or 6 gallon holding tank that slides in underneath the toilet that collects the waste. So when you remove it, I mean, it all closes up tight, so there's no fumes or spillage or anything like that. So it's a rare occasion that we would actually spend money on a campground.
And part of that is the campgrounds quite often are fairly packed in.
Yeah, they don't have as much space as they do in North America,
So
they're crowded.
They squeeze them in. Typically, the campgrounds aren't full service, so it means you will have electricity at the site, but you most likely won't have a water tap, and you definitely don't have a dump station.
Yeah, normally they would be electric only, sometimes water, not very often.
Sometimes,
Yeah.
but otherwise there'll be a tap that's close enough by that you can hook your hose up to it to fill up, but you share that tap with other people. And then for the dumping, you have to take your cassette over to where they have specific dump stations.
And you guys are very budget conscious. I was checking out your blog, which is amazing, by the way. Very well done. You know, living in an RV in Europe, and now you're in Southeast Asia living more along the lines of what we do. Do you find that there are cost differences there? Can you live pretty frugally doing this RV traveling?
So I'll use Norway as an example. I mean, everybody knows that Norway is a fairly expensive country to visit.
Oh, yes.
Especially when you have to pay for either accommodation or meals. Restaurant meals are ridiculous, of course, in Norway, and accommodation would be as well. And it's expensive enough just buying groceries, although I think we realized last time we were back in Canada that Canada's not far behind Norway now in grocery prices.
I think they were pretty much.
Yeah, they were. So when it came to us visiting Norway, the best way to do it was in a motorhome. So we spent 2 months, I think exactly, in Norway, June and July
of 2020
of 2022. And we spent $0 on overnight costs. So we wild camped every single night. We made all of our own meals. We didn't go into a restaurant once because I saw a sign once where a hamburger was advertised for $28. And I said, well, we're not doing that. And I mean, we don't eat out very often to begin with. Normally we do here in Southeast Asia. But yeah, Norway was a prime example where we did 2 months of exploring one southern quarter of Norway. We did a lot of hiking. We didn't spend a lot of money on entertainment expenses. We did spend money, of course, on fuel and ferries. But I mean, we were still doing it for under $2,000 US a month.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So you're doing wild camping, which costs you nothing, but how do you find your wild camping site? I mean, I'm thinking if I pulled over with my car somewhere, I'm going to have somebody knocking on my window, like, what are you doing here? Where do you find these wild camp locations, or what's the source?
So there are obviously other people who like camping the way we do, and so there's apps for that.
Quite a few apps.
Yeah, there's actually quite a few apps. The main one, I think, for Europe and the UK is called Park4Night. Park4Night also lists,
and it's Park,
P-A-R-K,
P-A-R-K,
the
number
letter,
4,
yeah, number 4.
and then night.
Yeah. But it's the go-to app for sure. There's another one called iOverlander, that's more popular, I think, in North and South America, but it's also available as well. And I mean, so you've got apps where people rate these spots, tell, I had a good quiet night there, except for a few dogs barking or something like that. Dead end road somewhere, end of the dead end road. I mean,
Or they let you know, like this isn't suitable for a unit that's over 6 meters or something like that.
and they'll talk a little bit about what access roads might be like or what other problems you might have encountering doing that way. But I mean, we've been doing this type of free camping slash wild camping slash boondocking since 2007. And, we could probably count the number of times we've been knocked on the door by a police officer, maybe 5 times.
Going to say, have we even, there's been maybe once or twice where we actually got knocked on and told to move. And we said, well, could you just leave us now and we'll do it first thing in the morning. We'll be gone.
Yeah, that's happened as well.
But
But
other
it's
than
such a
that,
rare occasion. I mean, it just
Yeah.
doesn't happen very often.
When you're doing the wild camping, are you typically staying near a location to where you can either ride a bicycle or catch a public bus or something to go visit somewhere, or how does that work if you want to like go check out a location, say whether it's Oslo or Leipzig or whatever?
In Europe, there's almost always um,
public transportation.
public transportation or somewhere for RVs to park, because RVing and motorhoming is really popular in Europe with European people. I mean, we don't often think about that as North Americans, that there are people outside of our little world that also like RVing. So it's like, yeah, people in Europe, it's a common popular thing. People in Australia, it's a common popular thing. So there's access to places where you can park your motorhome that's usually close enough to town that you can either ride a bike. And we did travel with bicycles. In fact,
They got stolen.
yeah,
What country were they stolen in?
Belgium.
in Brussels. It turns out we found out after the fact that Brussels is the bicycle theft capital of the world.
A lot of people in America really seem to only know about Western Europe versus not really being very knowledgeable about this, Central Europe or the Balkans. And just my experience, there's a lot less crime in Central Europe and the Balkans than what you see in Western Europe. And so I was trying to see whether my own personal experience, trying to see if it was a Western European country, and I wasn't surprised by that.
Yeah.
We
totally agree.
We've done all of the Balkans except Serbia. We did 3 months in Turkey with our bikes. Never a problem.
But in Brussels, that's where it gets taken.
Amazing.
Yeah, you're totally right.
And we had them in Mexico.
We had them all through Mexico, a couple of different years.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problems.
Western Europe has some great things. You make sure you lock your doors, keep your stuff secure. You just don't have that happening if you're in Poland or Slovakia or Serbia.
No, you're right.
Or Montenegro. It's just different standards when it comes to types, or different expectations when it comes to will something be stolen or will there be a thief? It's not to say that it won't happen, but it's much less likely to happen.
I totally agree with that. Yeah.
What size RV did you have? And I'm going to go into wanting to know about the maintenance and fuel costs that you were experiencing in Europe.
We were just under 6 feet. It's 6
6
meters.
meters. We were 5.9 meters, which
So-
is just under 20 feet, which obviously by North American standards is really small. Well, the one we had in North America was 28 feet, and it was small by North American standards at 28 feet. So yeah, when we downsized for the European one, I did a lot of research, and we came across this little 5.9 meter motorhome that had an electric drop-down bed from the ceiling. So it had a really big living space, and it had a really big kitchen, and it had a really big bathroom for the size of the unit. And then when it was bedtime, you folded everything down and hit a button, and the bed dropped down from the ceiling to take up some of that living space. And we just loved that. It worked absolutely perfectly for our needs.
Mind you, it only works if you works well if you both go to bed at the same time.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
we have other
So,
friends
so
who,
there's, but it's true. She's totally right. There's logistics involved with that. If one of you likes to sleep in and the other one likes to get up early, well, this setup maybe doesn't work the best for you. We were kind of sad selling it. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, he served our purposes perfectly. Right. So it was a little 4-cylinder diesel engine. I'm going by memory, but I think it was 140 or 160 horsepower, which
It
is a
was
lot,
peppy.
a lot to squeeze out of a little 4-cylinder diesel engine. So they've improved technology so much on these engines in the last 10 or 15 years, even. By US standards, we were getting 26 miles to the gallon with our little motorhome. Most people with RVs in the States are probably thinking, oh, I'm happy if I get 10 or 12 miles to the gallon. So yeah, I mean, fuel is more expensive in Europe than it is in the United States.
but attractions are so much closer.
Well, attractions are so much closer together. I mean, we had friends of ours that kind of got us into this at the beginning, and they said, when you go there, there's only 50 miles between attractions instead of having to drive 250 miles between attractions. And of course, with the fuel mileage, that makes up for the added cost of fuel.
I was just going to say, there's been a couple of months there where we could almost go a whole month with only one tank
With
of
only
gas,
one tank of
fuel.
fuel. Yeah, that's true. Max held 90 liters of fuel. So you figure at probably 180 to 2 euros per liter. You're still fairly expensive in US dollars to fill it up, but it lasts 800 kilometers.
$6 a gallon is kind of sometimes on the cheap side. $7 and $8 gallon gas is quite common when we're running around Europe. So having our Central Berlingo, that's also a diesel, we get approximately 45 miles a gallon when we're driving around without it fully laden down. And we get about 35 miles a gallon when it's full of all of our stuff and we're doing 130 kilometers down the highway. So, that's with that extra gas mileage, it helps to equalize the higher cost of fuel.
Sure.
So when you're coming to Europe, you want to take fuel into account, especially if you're trying to make sure you're staying in a budget. Now, your budget fluctuates from month to month according to your blog. Sometimes you have $1,800, sometimes you have $2,900. You have a variation in there, and I'd
Sometimes
like
1,100.
Yeah, sometimes 1,100. So I like how you throw these numbers around out there on your blog. What is your budget on a regular basis? But what is the cost of having that RV when you're running around Europe?
Obviously different for different people. If you're going to spend time in RV parks and campgrounds, then
It's going to be
obviously it's
more.
going to be more.
If you eat out more.
Depends on how much you want to travel.
We see other people who go from the bottom of Norway to the top of Norway and back
In a
down
month.
or around in a month, where it took us 2 months to do a teeny tiny little corner
Yeah.
of Norway in 2 months.
So I mean, it's true. There's a lot of variables involved, but typically when we're traveling full time in the motorhome in Europe, we might spend 1,500 a month, 1,400 a month US.
Wow.
Depend on the country or on.
I mean, certainly if you're in a place like Turkey, we're probably under $1,000 a month.
So that's an incredible savings. So when you think of yourself as basically you're a turtle with your shell on your back, and so you don't have to pay for lodging every day. And if you're free camping, you're not paying for the camping park every night when you're running around, because sometimes those camping parks can cost almost as much as an Airbnb for a month.
Well, the quality of your bed every night.
Yes, exactly. You've got all your cooking equipment. You've got
that's what
good quality pots and pans that you've bought and want to use all the time. That you not like we've been in. I'm sure this has happened to you as well. You get into an Airbnb and there's a fry pan that is scratched so badly that you wouldn't use it in your own house. Why is it in the Airbnb rental?
We're traveling with one
anyway
time now.
Yeah. We bring a lot with us.
Right.
Pans, different utensils, spices. But Julie also travels with a mattress pad because mattress topper, I mean, because she's got such a soft backside that she wants to make sure that every bed we get into is comfortable. So if we get in a room or an Airbnb and that's too hard for her.
But you've got the car that you can carry it around with.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a lot of people doing what you're doing don't have a car, which I think you're doing it the right way in that aspect. Is the car definitely makes it more convenient.
I love
it. You can stop and see, and it's the same with the motorhome.
Yeah.
You stop when you want to stop, and have some food, with the car, you'd probably bring lunch or snacks along with
Yeah, we
you.
picnic as we go places. We also have a
Those
cooler
things
that
that you
we have
mentioned.
to have refrigerated things in the car as we're driving that plugs into the electric socket. So I'm
Yeah.
sure you had a refrigerator. We have a cooler that's probably
Uh-huh.
like about a 4 or 5 gallon cooler, and that gets us around because Julie makes homemade dog food for the dogs, and that needs to be refrigerated.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Those figures that I mentioned of sort of between 1,000 to 1,500 a month to RV, that includes the insurance, maintenance, all that stuff as well. So, I mean,
Oh,
that's not, that's total. I mean, I had mentioned earlier that I thought it was maybe $200 a month or something for the insurance and registration. And I mean, we include all those figures in our expenses. It's important to buy at the right price. And if you buy it at the right price, you're also able to sell it at the right price.
When you sold yours, did you take a loss, or what was the mathematical gain or loss on that?
And no, and we did explain to the new owners. I was totally upfront and straightforward with them. I told them exactly what we paid for the unit. I told them exactly what we were selling it for. The reason we came up with that figure was because that particular vehicle is not being made anymore. We bought the last year of a 10-year run on that model, and it was a really popular model. I mean, we did get a little bit lucky with COVID that it kind of messed up the marketplace, that the vehicles held their value a little bit longer.
The dealership was going to buy it back for us.
Yeah.
And then if they turn around and sell it, they would have put a markup on it.
The dealer had made us an offer that wasn't much less than we paid for it. And that was their wholesale offer. So they were going to turn around and sell it for an increased
I thought
dollar
that
amount.
they had offered us more than what we paid for it.
No, I think it was slightly less.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
it was really close. So we explained all this to the new buyers as well. And I think at the time, based on our viewpoint and their viewpoint, we both got the right price.
I'm sure you guys are going to be an inspiration for some RVers in the United States that are going to see this and say, you know what? We've seen Utah, we've seen Colorado, we've seen Idaho, we've seen Nebraska. Let's go hop the pond and go buy an RV. It's possible to do it. And of course, just make sure your passport's up to date. And if you're going to be coming over and looking for an RV, we've got several different methods that we'll be glad to share the link with you for. So you can send us an email. I'll send the links over to you to warrenjuliatravel@gmail.com. Also, if you're an international traveler, Julie and I, we have international health insurance on us. I'm an agent in the States. So if you're looking for international health insurance, please send me an email on that as well. Julie and I, we have $1 million of coverage on us, $2,500 deductible. We're good in pretty much almost every country in the world, except for going back to the US. It would cost us more if we put that in there. And that's $240 a month for us to have the international coverage. So again, shoot me an email at warrenjuliatravel@gmail.com. So Ruth and Kevin, thank you so much for all of the very valuable information you're sharing today. And I'm encouraging people to go check out your blog. I'm putting the blog information right up here as a reminder for you to go to it. And check it out. They've got some really good stories. We may look at trying to do another interview with them because they've got so much great information. So as a reminder, Julie and I were traveling full-time with dogs, trying to see what it's like to live in different countries. We're sharing our experiences and expenses with you. So until next time, have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.
ciao.
Bye.
Bye.